Hello, in this video, we're going to go through musictheory.net and I'm going to show you how to customize exercises to your needs so that when you've finished doing a certain exercise, you can go in and change the settings so that you can increase the difficulty or work on some different skills. So we'll go through each of the types of identification that we have: note, key signature, interval, scale, and chord. And we'll look at this in a few of the categories of exercises that we have. We have the staff identification category, staff construction category. So let me just explain these a little bit. Staff identification is where you have a note on the staff that you have to say what it is, or a key signature, or an interval, or a scale, or a chord. Staff construction is where you actually have to go and place the note in the correct place on the staff. So that just sort of makes you look at the note or the key signature or the scale or the chord in a bit of a different way because you are constructing it on the staff, as if you were writing it down yourself. Keyboard identification is relating all of these things to the keyboard itself as opposed to the staff. So that's a little bit more relevant to applied theory. We're not going to look at fretboard because I don't really teach guitar with these. And then we'll look at ear training as well. I guess if you were interested in the guitar, though, you could go into the fretboard identification exercises, and these settings would really work the same with those. So you could go into that if you have an interest in guitar. And then with the ear training, these are exercises that are just giving you a sound that you have to identify. Okay, so now let's go into the staff note identification exercise. Remembering if you're using musictheory.net, you're going to have to close this box all the time to use the web version. You can also purchase the Tenuto app, which will mean you won't have to do that anymore. So it's only a few dollars. I think it's worthwhile, but if you still don't want to purchase the app, then you're going to have to close this dialog box every time to use the web version. Now, you can see when it opens up, it's got all of the notes, all the sharps, all the note names, and all the flats of those note names. So if you're just starting out, you're going to want to simplify this. So up on the top right corner of the screen, you can see the little gear icon, which is the settings icon. You can go in and customize it. First of all, we can look at the clefs. We can change what clef we're going to use. Obviously, a lot of these you're not going to worry about, but you could switch from the treble to the bass, or you could just do the grand staff, which is going to give you both, so you'll be switching between. It will just depend on where you're at in your journey of reading notes and sort of how many notes you want to start with. But let's keep it really simple, as if you're a beginner and you're just starting out. With this, you can change the treble range as well. So let's say you could even change that to that if you wanted to practice reading on ledger lines, or if you're just starting out, you can move that down to just stay within the staff so that you can practice those note names first, and then extend it up and down as you wish, or focus on a particular range of notes. So that's really useful to change that as needed. You can also go into the lines and spaces and change those. This is going to be relevant once again if you're a beginner and you're just learning the skips alphabet, or really just you want to get used to only lines or only spaces, or if you want to start mixing it up and doing both. You can add key signatures in here as well. So let's say you're learning D major. You can put in the D major key signature, and then you're going to be keeping in mind those sharps every time you're identifying a note. And you can do that as you're learning more key signatures. You can add some of those in. We're going to keep it at C major for now, or no sharps or flats. You can also change the way that you're naming the note. So you can have the letters from C to C, which is usually a pretty standard way of doing it, or you can make them alphabetical, which will be A to A. You can also look at scale degrees. So that will be numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say you're identifying notes in the key of D major. You can put it in scale degrees so that you're identifying the number of the scale rather than just the note name. That can be useful for applied theory. So we'll take it back to letters for this case. You can decide whether or not to have helpers. That can be useful if you're just starting out and you need a little bit of assistance. You can decide whether or not to have accidentals, meaning sharps or flats. So we're actually going to turn that off. And then with the note filter, we can go in and select which notes we want to learn. So if we don't want any sharps or flats to begin with, we can turn all of those off and then go back in there. Now we've only got 7 notes to choose from. We can choose whether to have the next question immediately or to wait or after the audio or after an animation. Let's put the animation on and see what that looks like. And then we can do a challenge mode. So let's say I'm going to say 5 questions. You can put it up to 15, 20, all the way up to 100 questions. That's probably a few too many in one sitting. But you might choose 20, you might choose 15, 10, depending on how much time you have and how quickly you want to do the exercise. And you can also select multiple attempts so that it gives you a chance to learn. So we've created those settings, and now because I put it in challenge mode, I have to start the challenge. It's going to start my 5 questions. So now you can see it's not timing me, or it might be timing me, but there's no time limit. So now I've got the note range is within the staff, and I only have to name which letter name the note is. So I can go through those and just name them and do my 5 questions, and then it's giving me a score. And it did actually time me and tell me how long it took me to name those notes. So that's your note identification, and that's going to be the case for any of the note exercises. So in the staff construction, the note construction, and the keyboard note identification, fretboard note, note ear training, they're all going to have very similar settings because you're just changing a similar variety of parameters that relate to notes. So now let's have a look at the key signature settings, and we're going to go into key signature construction to demonstrate this one. Use the web version. Okay, so this has currently the settings are not very simple. It's actually testing me on all of the key signatures above 4 sharps and flats. So that's a little bit more advanced. If you wanted to just test, let's say 1 sharp and 1 flat to remember which of those is which, or you could go up to 2 sharps and 2 flats. You can select those. You can really keep it very simple. Let's actually keep it super simple to start with. We've only got 3 key signatures. We've got no sharps or flats, 1 flat, and 1 sharp. And that's just going to test only those for us. You can again select the staffs or the clefs. You can select whether or not you're going to test major or minor. So that's going to be good for you to memorize which major and minor keys have the same key signature. So let's leave that on. We can choose letters, or we can choose solfege syllables. If you're learning solfege syllables in relation to key signatures, you can do that, but I recommend just leaving it on letters. Then we're going to put our challenge mode on again. I think it's useful to have a challenge mode, otherwise it's just not going to stop, okay? And we'll put on multiple attempts to keep it easier. Let's start our challenge. So D minor has 1 flat, and then I have to submit the answer. F major, E minor, G major, A minor has 0. And there we go. So that's our key signature settings. And they will be very similar for any of the key signature exercises that you have. We don't have key signature ones in the keyboard identification category, but or the fretboard or the ear training. So that's really just relevant for staff identification and staff construction exercises. Let's go into the interval exercises. We'll have a look at this in the staff identification and in the ear training one. So use the web version. So now you can see we've got all of these interval names, which could be confusing, very confusing if you are just starting out with intervals. So we're going to want to reduce this. We can once again choose our clefs. We can choose our note range. So we might keep it. This can be really great. Actually, intervals are great to be identifying when you're using ledger lines. So if you're just practicing reading on ledger lines, it's really great opportunity to do this with interval identification. We'll take it back though, take our range back, key signatures. Now, again, this is most relevant for the key signatures that you are learning currently. If you just want to practice reading just the basic intervals and not have to worry about sharps and flats, you're going to turn those off, okay? You can choose the harmonic, melodic, or both for the display mode, meaning with harmonic, the intervals will be stacked up like the ones that you actually see on the screen now. With melodic, they'll be separate as if it's a melody. And if it's both, then it's going to switch between them. So you learn to read intervals in both contexts, remembering that the interval name is the same, whether it's harmonic or melodic. It's just that one of them, they are stacked up on top of each other, and the other one, melodic, they are one after the other or separate. You can also choose ascending or descending or both. It's probably a good idea to start with one, try the other, then do them both. And also, you can require quality or not. Now, this is going to be relevant if you are, again, if you're just a beginner with reading intervals, you're going to want to turn that off. But if you're becoming more advanced, you could turn that on, because that's going to give you the opportunity to identify if it's, say, a major second or a minor second, for example. But as a beginner, you're going to turn that off, and then you're going to pick which intervals you're going to learn. So let's say you are absolute beginner and you only want to look at the line to space intervals. Then you're going to pick only the even numbered intervals. But if you want to just practice reading the space to space or the line to line intervals, then you'll pick the odd numbered intervals. Or if you've done that already and you want to practice reading all of them, you can do all of those. So let's see what that looks like now. And you can see it's actually quite convenient. It's got the even numbered intervals in one column and the odd numbered intervals, except for the 8th, in the other column. So that can help you just sort of cognize the difference between the two. And you can also I always recommend challenge mode. We won't do the challenge right now. We'll just go right back and have a look at the next category. So as you can see, a lot of the settings are the same. There's standard settings in every exercise that are the same. And then there's some unique settings depending on whether it's for notes, intervals, and so forth. Let's look at the ear training one for intervals. As you can see now, instead of a staff, we have an audio track, and we have the names of the intervals, in words like this. So once again, with this one, there isn't a lot, there's fewer settings actually that you've got here. You can reduce the amount of, let's say we just want to tell the difference between the first 5 major and perfect intervals. So we're going to turn all the other ones off and we're just going to focus on those. So we've only got 5 intervals now. We've got whether we're ascending, descending, harmonic, ascending, melodic and harmonic, and descending, melodic and harmonic. So you can change, or you can actually have all of them selected, or you can just have 1 or 2, for example. You can change the speed, which is really useful for tuning in and listening carefully. We can change the range. So, that's a little bit like the staff range, except now it's just giving you the note name rather than the staff. Range mode It's just determining the available pitches for the starting note of the interval, or for both notes. Basically, it just means if you're selecting both notes, then both of the notes of the interval will be within the range that you have selected. So that's probably a good idea. Then you've got the other standard settings of the challenge mode, or when the next question happens. So that's how we're going to change the settings for the ear training interval exercise. Okay, and a lot of the ear training exercises are similar in that way. Okay, so you're probably starting to get a sense of how to change these settings. We're just going to have a look at a couple more. Let's have a look at the keyboard identification exercises for the scale. This is usually very useful. So we've got the type of scale that's written down the bottom in the boxes that you need to identify, and then whether it's major or minor, or what kind of minor scale. And then at the top, obviously, we have the keyboard with the notes written, and you can see the sort of geography of the scale, or as I like to say, the landscape of the scale there. So let's go into the settings and adjust. So we might try just major and natural minor, because they're always great to relate to one another, to start with in understanding scales and keys. And filter by key signature or by tonic. I'm not actually sure what that is related to. We're just going to do it by key signature. Yeah. Key signatures. So at the moment we've got 3 sharps and 3 flats. We can reduce that down. So let's say we've just only got 3 keys here, and but we do have the major and minor. So that sort of makes it essentially 6 scales that you're identifying. You can change the highlight style, next question, and challenge mode. So let's have a little go at this actually. Let's put on 5 questions, and we'll start our challenge. Okay, so that is a natural minor. So I happen to know that's got 1 sharp, and I know that that's the E minor. Okay, so this also has 1 sharp. This is the major of the same one. Major. Yeah, great. Okay, so that's just demonstrating some of the keyboard exercises, particularly in relation to the scale. Let's have a look at what it looks like for the keyboard chord identification. And this already has a challenge on it, so I'm just going to turn that off so we can see the settings. All right, so this is looking at the triads essentially. So we'll have a look in here to see how many different kinds of chords that we can actually learn to identify on the keyboard. It starts with the majors and minors, but then we have all of these other different kinds of chords, augmented, diminished, extending into 7th chords, half diminished, minor, major 7, moving into more complex chords. I definitely recommend starting with the majors and minors, because you're going to want to get really familiar with the distances between the root note, the 3rd, and the 5th, to be telling the difference between the major and minor, no matter what note you're starting from. You can either have inversions or not. Definitely start without them, but if you are really fluent with identifying major and minor triads at this point, you might want to start adding in the inversions. You can change the highlight style again. You can change when the next question comes in, and you can turn on challenge mode. So there's actually not a lot of settings there. You're really just choosing which chords you're going to change. Unfortunately, you can't select which keys or which chords that you're going to be identifying here. So it's going to be very random and looking at any major or minor chord starting on any key. So the challenge here really is about really looking at the distance between note 1 and 3 and note 3 and 5 to be determining the difference there. So that gives you an overview of the kinds of settings that you can change and adjust in musictheory.net. Obviously, it really depends on where you're at. If you're a beginner with music and you're just learning the basics, or if you're advancing through more complex settings, you can definitely go in there. The more knowledge that you have, the easier you will find it to adjust those settings to your needs, because you'll sort of understand the requirements a little better. But if you're just beginning, you're going to start with as simple as possible. So you really want to do that so that you don't get too confused by all of the possibilities and those advanced settings, which are just going to be overwhelming to understand in the beginning. So I hope that helps. It's a really great site. Going through these exercises, if you really did progress your way through as many of, especially with piano, the staff identification exercises, staff construction, keyboard identification, and the ear training exercises, if you progressed through as many levels as you could and got, as advanced as you could in all of those, you would have a fantastic development in your skill, both in sight reading, in navigating your way around keyboard geography, applied theory, as well as ear training. So it's pretty amazing what they offer here. And if you really would like to, you can also look at some of the lessons in the lessons section, which is just giving you a bit more of the theory. I won't go into those right now, though. I may do another video in the future to show you how to navigate that. At the moment, though, it's just super useful to do the exercises. And once again, I do recommend, if you want a bit more of a seamless, straightforward experience with moving through all of these exercises, definitely consider getting Tenuto if you have an Apple device, because it is just a lot more seamless, a lot more, it is just an easier experience. You don't have to keep on cancelling out that box saying that use the web version. It gets a little bit annoying after a while, and it's only a few dollars. And musictheory.net have provided an amazing resource, and they do deserve payment for what they've created. So I recommend that you do that. But if that's not in your means at the moment, then it's fantastic that they've created a free resource that we can use like this. So happy learning, happy skill development. Treat it like a game, set yourself little challenges, and enjoy the process of learning and building your skills. See you next time.